Hi everyone, I'm Nabil Hannan, Field CISO at NetSPI, and this is Agent of Influence. Today, Ryan Hayes joins us to talk about automated red teaming and effective purple teaming. Ryan, so happy to have you here.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Nabil.
So Ryan, tell us a little bit about where you are today.
Yeah, so right now I currently run I'm the global head of red team at Citi.
So help me understand, what is your take on the buzzword automated red teaming?
I think it's a marketing term at the moment, right? You see automated red teaming or automated red teaming with AI, trademark pending. But I think the confusion is really you're not going to fully automate red team ever. It's just there's too much human thought process that needs to go in place and just too many decision points that need to happen that AI or machine learning or any of these other things are not going to be able to simulate appropriately without introducing risk. So I think it's a huge marketing term, and I think really what the problem is small and medium-sized businesses that just don't know any better are they're buying these things assuming that they're getting these automated pen testing, automated red teaming, and they're not getting what they think they are. And so when you start looking at the larger organizations, they've got smarter, they have internal teams. And so I definitely feel like automation is very helpful, but automated red teaming is just not true. It's not there.
I think when it comes to red teaming engagements in general, there are certain nuances of cleverness,
Absolutely.
creativity, and other things that come into play. That being said, there are also a lot of minutia and administrative things
Yes.
or work that goes on behind the scene that doesn't necessarily require that creativity from a human being, which can be automated. Can you talk a little bit more about how do you kind of try to find that balance between a manual red teaming effort that truly needs a human being in the mix versus what are the types of things that you believe can be automated out?
Yeah, so a lot of the repetitive process, right? I think all of the aspects of a red team, there's some aspect of that can be automated. Reconnaissance is the prime example that probably everyone is going to use, where I can feed a scope into some automated tool or some AI where I can start chewing up that data and paring it down so that I can then feed it to a human at some point in that process where they can then think intelligently about it. Here's the target that we need to go after, or here's the thing that we need to do. I think every phase of a red team engagement, there's some bits and pieces of that we can automate, and that's just going to make your teams more efficient, and it's going to be a force multiplier for you.
Now, this may be counterintuitive, but with too much automation or with too much availability of tools and technology out there, I often find sometimes that can become an inflection point where it becomes more of a hindrance during an engagement versus actually helping during an engagement. Would love to understand your perspective on how is red teaming engagements, how are they being impacted today by automation, and are there certain negative things that are happening because there's just too much available out there?
Well, I don't know if this is red team in particular, but you definitely need to be careful and make sure that the operators that you have running, pen testing or red team engagements understand the tools that they're using. All of these tools are great. They improve the overall human aspect of the engagement, and they make them more efficient, and they can make them faster and more accurate at their job. But they need to understand what they're doing. When a tool breaks, how do you fix it? So if you don't understand the underlying functions that are going on, you're gonna get lost in things. So yes, there is probably a point where there's too much automation and not enough human thought going on. So you definitely need to make sure as you're planning out things, where are the breakpoints in each of these segments of the engagement? During reconnaissance, what point do I stop, look at my data, and decide, do I use this tool or this tool instead because of the data output that I have? I don't know if there's a set definition of when I need to stop and inject human intelligence into a process, but there's definitely something, that's why we have leadership management that can kind of help guide operators along their path as they're doing these engagements to, hey, stop here, look at your data, ask for help, ask for guidance, and then move on and pick your next tool or pick your next thing to do.
What type of advice would you have for an organization or someone who's maybe fallen into the trap of thinking that they're secure and have a false sense of security because they're using a lot of automated tools that they think is doing what's called red teaming, and they're actually not focusing enough on the human and manual side? How would you ask them to look at it from a different lens so they maybe think about the problem differently?
That's a hard one. I think what they need to do is they need to understand, what they're buying and then what they should be getting. And I think that's a customer education piece or a business education piece if you're an insider employee looking at that. You have to educate the person buying this. If it's your CISO or if it's your an executive that's buying these automated services, you have to educate them on what they're getting and what they should be getting at the end of the day. It boils down to education at the end of the day. There's so much sales buzzwords that have been going around that people don't even understand that they're buying the wrong thing. So having the conversation around, here's what you're getting, here's the results that we're getting, and yep, everything is green and it's all pretty and it checks that box for us. But, if some hacker comes along 2 weeks from now and they find a vulnerability, where's your green piece of paper now? Like showing them that there's human thought process going into this. They're understanding attack vectors, and they're understanding risks and vulnerabilities and operational impact. Those are the things that are getting missed when you inject all the automation into it.
So if I gave you a crystal ball that could look into the future, what would your take be on where you see red teaming as a method of security activity going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I don't necessarily, I guess this would be a crystal ball, but it's more of the traditional thought process of red teaming. So right now, the, I guess, still buzzword of red teaming is traditionally looked at is in cybersecurity, right? But red teaming should be at every single layer of decision making within a business. If it's thinking about a merger and acquisition, what are the adverse reactions that could happen? What are the things that I could take advantage of if we do that? But taking red teaming outside of cyber, I think, is really where especially larger organizations should be shifting to. It's something that I push when I build these red teams out for all the many organizations that I've done it for. I always push to get it outside of cyber. It always starts in cyber, and then we bring it up up to the board level and have those conversations at the board level, but definitely with executives and everybody else.
I know detecting problems is always fun, but I think a bigger challenge we have is actually remediating or protecting an organization from being attacked and attack scenarios, which leads us to the conversation around purple teaming and having red team and blue teams work together. What do you see as some of the main challenges of having a proper purple team engagement, and how do you overcome those hurdles?
There's lots of challenges there. One is the big obvious challenge is funding and making sure that you have the appropriate personnel in place to do that. I think one of the other hindrances that you see quite a bit is when you have a red team and a blue team, especially when they're internal, there's a lot of animosity between the two teams, right? How do you bring those folks together to understand that they're both working together to solve the same problem? And that's what purple teams are here to do, right? We're all here to solve the same problem. Red does it one way, blue does it one way, but when you guys are doing it together, it's a faster process.
So having done this for so long, are there any highlights or lowlights that you've experienced that you'd be comfortable sharing?
Probably the lowlights. I don't know if I'd want to share. There's definitely, a lot of conflicts and like I said, animosity between the teams where you have to kind of build bridges and mend those relationships either that have happened because of things that you have done personally as you're working as a red team, or relationships that you have to repair from previous folks that have been in your similar roles before you came into them. I would say that, I guess that would be the lowlights, but definitely the highlights are being the first one to discover problems so that when the attackers come in, I've been in scenarios where we've been attacked and it was literally just the last week prior where we saw something. It was a 0-day vulnerability, and we fixed not only the vulnerability, but we fixed detection capabilities and visibility capabilities. And none of that would have happened as quickly as it did if we were doing that as a red team, because those engagements are longer, months at a time. Whereas when it's a purple team, I can spin that up, I can run it. It's a matter of hours, maybe days. And then we push fixes into place and things are good to go. So some of the highlights are just seeing those things reflect so quickly and being able to attribute it back to the activities that we were specifically doing.
Is there something that you've done in your career that's a little more unique? I know we know that there are normal team building activities and exercises to get teams to collaborate, but do you have something you've done that might be a little unique or different that helped you harbor that sense of collaboration across teams? And why do you think that was so effective?
So one of the ways that I've built the red teams at the last few organizations that I've been going about it is I refer to it more as defensive red team, and that's abnormal. Normally, it's an offensive security function, but I want to make sure that the red team, as they're going in and performing all their actions, like they can tie that back to intelligence that they gained, being able to emulate just like an attacker would, right? An attacker is not going to be an insider threat. Well, it could be an insider threat, but it's not going to be somebody that's doing offensive security for years or months or, a long amount of time and have, inherent knowledge of an environment. So I want to make sure that the red teams are basing all of their actions based on intelligence they've gathered during an engagement. They always have. It's like the old school when you're in grade school and you always had to show your work on your math problems. I do the same thing with my red team. Every time they type a command and hit enter, they have to show me their work. How'd you get there? Why'd you run that command? What are you doing? What's that based on? What's your train of thought? And write that out. And we use all that data when we end the engagement and go back and sync up with the blue team, and we walk through our whole entire process. And it kind of sheds a little bit of light that the blue team doesn't actually get to see when it's a real adversary, right? They don't get to question them at the end of it. And they don't get to question us all the time on all of the activities unless we have that documented, or people forget what they do. But I force the guys to sit down and write all their actions and their thoughts down of why they're doing each thing so that we can talk through it at the end. And it's really kind of opened some eyes, and it's helped. Again, I don't know if it's better than anybody does it, any other place, but it has helped me, and it has helped. It's opened eyes for a lot of the blue and the red team guys that I've managed over the years.
So being in the cybersecurity industry now for almost 20 years for myself, you've been around for a long time as well. I know we've seen leaps and bounds that happened in terms of security and organizations and leaders understanding the need for security activities such as red teaming, etc. But I still find that there's still that friction between the offensive and defensive side. And especially when it comes to purple teaming and there's the red teams and the blue teams and that an animosity happens, it's hard to get everyone on the same page to understand that they're both going towards a common goal. And I'm curious to get your perspective on why is that the case? How come we still haven't learned or understood enough to understand that my team, that's really a partner and a peer of mine, isn't really doing this to make my life harder, but we're doing this to protect the organization and the business as a whole. What's it going to take to get education and awareness of security to a point where people, when other teams come to them with a security problem, they don't see it as someone calling their baby ugly, but they see it as, as a way to improve, an opportunity to improve?
I mean, you took the words out of my mouth. That's where I was going to go with it. Yeah, nobody wants to have their baby called ugly. I mean, one of the ways that I've kind of helped foster the relationship a little bit is you kind of feed on some of the animosity, but in a fun way. You gamify the system, right? If the blue team can catch the red team and, during the first 3 steps of their actions during the attack path that we have laid out, we take the blue team out. The red team has to take the blue team out to dinner, right? Or vice versa, right? We'll just kind of gamify a lot of the engagements, and that kind of helps foster some of that. Is it going to fix everything? No, but it does help. It makes it a little bit more fun for everybody, and it makes it more of a contest. And so while there is still that, I want to be better than you type thing, it's more in a fun aspect and not coming from anger where, normally if you're, oh, I'm better than you, I just did all this cool stuff and you guys caught nothing, you saw nothing. That's more of, calling the baby ugly, and nobody wants that.
Ryan, thank you. This was fun and always great chatting with you and hanging out.
Appreciate it.
Hopefully we get to do this again.
Absolutely.
I have one more question for you.
Yep.
That's to wrap this all up, which is, if there was one key takeaway from our conversation today that you want the people to take away, what would that be?
I think it is fostering that red and blue relationship, right? It's a big thing for me because I've been in environments where it's so much hate and discontent that nothing gets fixed and nothing gets solved. It's really making sure that you're fostering a good relationship right there, because it's the only way anything is actually going to get done.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. You can find more episodes on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as at netspi.com/agent of influence. If you want to be a guest or want to recommend someone, then please reach out to us at podcast@netspi.com. And as always, Stay proactive, my friends.